Good morning, Happy Valley, and welcome back to another edition of the Penn State 365 podcast. I'm your host, Richie Schnyderite, and joined again by Joey Klender, our wrestling analyst. Joey, what's going on, man?
Hanging in there. Hope you had a good Thanksgiving, Rich.
Yeah, same to you, man. So now Penn State's dual meet season is right here. It's here. It's this Sunday.
That's right.
Lehigh comes to town, but before that, we're going to go back to last weekend, I think it was. I can't remember anymore.
It
weekends
was last Tuesday.
Yeah, last Tuesday. My brain is all mushed with these holidays. But going back to the NWCA All-Star Exhibition, Penn State sent 5 wrestlers there. They all had some pretty good showings. Just give me a quick synopsis of what you thought.
Yeah, obviously super impressed with Carter Starace right off the gate. 11-0 major over Mekhi Lewis. I have to wonder how good a shape Mekhi Lewis is in, like, considering all the injuries he's had throughout his career. But he just kind of looked like a little slow to get up sometimes. I don't know if maybe he was just gassed or what, but Carter really put the moves on him. It was a really, really good victory. Vince had a good win. It was just one of those really tight matches that was, won off a takedown. Truex, he got beat by a last second takedown on the edge of the mat. He's going to get better in that room, and I really think that, Tyson was in the finals last year against Brooks and lost. So, you really can't be upset with what Truex put out there. And then Brooks looked great as usual, and Kirk was just incredible. I mean, he looked awesome. I know there's a lot of people kind of speculating maybe Hendrickson is a little banged up from I believe he was at Worlds. So maybe something to factor in there, but I just want to say that before we started this season, I said that I think Kirk is going to be he's going to be really opening some eyes this year. And I think that win was really big, to say the least, in terms of, what his expectations for himself are going into this year. I think he's got a big chip on his shoulder, and it was nice to see him go out there and really get to his leg attacks and keep a good pace throughout the whole match. And he just looked quick too, which is, you see that with a lot of heavyweights that are super successful at the Division I level. They're like football players, basically like defensive linemen. So, he just looked awesome. Everybody looked great. Even Truex, who, dropped a close one. Everybody looked good. So really good momentum as we head into the dual meet season this Sunday.
Yeah. Anything really surprising catch your eye? I know I'm looking right now, 5-1 win for Vaness, 11-0 major, 11-2 major, 18-2 tech fall. And I know you just said Truex, but anything surprising other than that, or?
I think the biggest surprise is the fact that Carter Starace was actually thinking about not coming back to Penn State, and was thinking about walking away and going and doing MMA or getting ready for Olympics next year. But no, I mean, I'm not super surprised by anything. I will admit that I thought that Starace's match with Lewis might be a little closer than it was. I didn't necessarily think that he would blank him and major him. But I mean, Starace's just kind of one of those guys who's just like head and shoulders above everybody else. He's like Ed Ruth. He's like David Taylor. He's like a Bo Nickel or Jason Nolf. He is kind of like getting to that point, or he is probably at that point considering what he did last year, pinning Labriola in the finals. So, I mean, it's the only surprise for me is the fact that Mekhi Lewis couldn't put up a single point against them. Obviously, as I said, I was really impressed with Kirk too. I would argue that maybe Kirk's performance was a little more impressive just because I don't think anybody expected him to just walk out there and put that kind of performance on against Hendrickson. But yeah.
Now this Sunday, like we just mentioned before, it's going to be the first dual meet of the season. Number 20 Lehigh comes to town for Rec Hall. It's going to be on TV, which is pretty cool, as always. Not as always, but for most of these matches, I would say. But this is a big one. Let's just started off with the 125 matchup. It's, we don't know, I guess. Robbie Howard, Gary Steen, Braden Davis versus number 33, Luke Stanich. This might be the only match where could sway in Lehigh's favor, maybe.
I would say the early weights, especially 25 and 33, are where Lehigh has a chance to put points on the board.
Mm-hmm.
Personally, I'm hoping to see Braden Davis at 25. I think he's been, throughout the tournament so far this year, he's been the obvious choice.
Yeah.
I had a lot of expectations for Robbie Howard, coming into this year, just because, he's been injured the last couple of years, and, he was a very sought after recruit, all those things. He's just been a little slow to start, I guess. I don't know if it's maybe still lingering injuries. I don't know if maybe conditioning isn't there. I don't know if maybe, but I guess the possibilities are endless, but he's 3-4 through the first few tournaments of the year. Meanwhile, Davis is sitting at 7-0. So
yeah.
I just think that if I would maybe think that because Penn State's so heavily favored from 41 to heavyweight, maybe they'll put Howard out there just to kind of get him experience and everything, and get him in a dual meet. But I would imagine that for the heavier duels and the Big Ten matchups and potentially the postseason, I am, as of right now, leaning towards Davis being the starter, 25. With that being said, I agree with you. I think that Davis absolutely has a chance to be the starter at 25, and I think that if he comes out, that gives Penn State the best chance to win on Sunday at that weight class. Stanich in the duel against Pitt that Lehigh just had, he won against Colton Camacho 8-5. So honestly, it's up in the air. I guess we'll see on Sunday who goes out at 25. If it's worth anything, Howard's name's listed first.
True. I do want to ask you this because you're more familiar with wrestling than I am, and you're more knowledgeable with it. But how do you get a wrestler out of a slump? Do you kind of just throw him out there against a lower ranked guy like this in Stanich and say, hey, maybe you can work your way out of it and earn a victory?
Honestly, what I'd say is, in the past, I would imagine that the biggest thing to solve in terms of a wrestler who's going through a slump is their own head. 90% of the time, I would imagine, and from people I've talked to, coaches and stuff like that, when you have a guy who has a lot of talent who's just kind of not performing the way they are, it's all mental. It's a lot of it is a confidence thing. I can remember a couple years ago, it's more than a couple, maybe 10 or 11 years ago, we had Cameron Wade at heavyweight, Penn State did. And I remember talking to Aaron Onspach with my dad in the tunnel before the match, and Cameron Wade, his senior year, I don't think it was really expected that he would be an All-American. I thought maybe it would be close. Halfway through the year, he really started to hit a stride, and Aaron Onspach said, they were basically in the room building his confidence every day, and that was really leading to the results that they were getting with him. I think Robbie Howard probably has a lot of doubt, just because he has dealt with all of these injuries for so long and through the first few years of college. So that's obviously demoralizing, especially when, you work all summer long to, you're lifting all summer, you're doing technique all summer, and then you get into the season. It's time to, scale back some meals and lose some weight and get to your weight class, get in real wrestling shape. You work all year for it, and then it comes around and you get hurt. I think anybody would probably be a little bit demoralized by that. You think about UFC fighters who train 8 to 12 weeks in a training camp, and then they break their hand a week out from the fight, or they get a concussion or a cut on their eyebrow and they got to pull out because they're not medically cleared anymore. You do all that work for that moment, and then it doesn't come to fruition because of an injury or whatever. So I would think a lot of it's mental. I would more imagine. These guys know they're good. I mean, these guys are on Penn State's wrestling team, so they know they're capable of winning. But you have to believe in yourself, and that is something I think all those guys who are ranked 1, 2, 3, they know they belong. They know they can beat anybody. They step out on that mat. They're not intimidated by a single soul who walks out there, And that's the difference between these kids and the kids that kind of, they don't make it in college wrestling.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I would imagine all those coaches are probably really trying to get Robbie Howard to a place mentally where he knows he can win, knows he can compete with these guys. And I don't know if he's 100% there yet. I don't know that, but I would have to imagine maybe that might be it.
That's perfectly fair. More so curious on my part, I guess. But moving on to the next weight class, it's probably the matchup of the night. 133,
Absolutely.
number 3 Aaron Nagao versus number 5 Ryan Crookham, who is also a Pennsylvania native. What do you think? What do you think is going to happen in this one?
So Crookham's coming off a really big win over Vito Arujau of Cornell, returning national champion, beat RBY last year. Really hit a stride late in the year and was just incredible. Vito Arujau is a huge 133-pounder. He literally looked like he was 2 weight classes above RBY last year in the finals. This is another one where Penn State's not, guaranteed to win. I guess nobody's guaranteed to win, but this is another one that's going to be tight. Crookham is a gamer, and he's really, really hard-nosed. He is a hand fighter. He can tire you out. I mean, that match with Vito was very impressive to watch. Him go in as a freshman and win that match. This is a perfect example of what I just said. These kids are not intimidated by anybody who walks out there. Vito Arujau was the best wrestler in the country last year when that season ended in terms of just dominating opponents and just how they looked at the end of the tournament. I would argue that Vito Arujau is probably the best wrestler in the country. Wow. This kid who was just in high school went into a tournament this year and beat him. Ryan Crookham is no joke. So Nagao's going to have his hands full there. I'm really looking forward to that match. I think it's going to be great technically. I think it's going to be a big test for Nagao. We had some rumors of him possibly being injured coming into the year and all those things. Obviously, those things weren't 100% accurate. Maybe he was dealing with a little something, but it wasn't as severe as we thought. But with that being said, that's going to be the match of the night. I'm thinking Nagao just because of the, you're in Rec Hall, you're going to have the Penn State crowd behind you, all those things, but Crookham's going to be there. He's going to be game. He's going to be ready. So, we'll see.
It's definitely going to be, like you said, the match of the night. But pretty good one at 141 too in Bo Bartlett and number 10 Malik Hines out of Kissimmee, Florida, who's 7-1 on the year, and Bo is 7-0 on the year.
Yeah. Bo Bartlett is my pick to win 41 this year. He has made so many improvements, and he's been very open about how he didn't really trust himself as a wrestler. Maybe his first year on campus, he was good, but he was also wrestling in a weight class above where he should have been. He was at 49. I think that Bo should probably come in here and make somewhat of a statement against Malik Hines. I don't think that Bo's going to have much of an issue there. He's just really evolved as a wrestler from his first matches in Penn State singlet. He's one of the better guys on the team. Obviously, he's ranked second in the country, but he's just improved a lot, and he's got great leg attacks. I think he's starting to trust himself there. Big thing when he was a freshman was he would get in on those shots, but he just couldn't finish. It was probably more of a size thing than anything. Like I said, he was wrestling a weight class above where he should have been, but I think he'll go in. I'm going to go bold here, and I say Bo gets a major on Sunday at that weight class.
That's pretty good against the number 10 wrestler. So can't beat that. Number 149, it's going to be number 2 ranked Shane Van Ness versus unranked Pennsylvania native who's a freshman in Matt Rapos. Rapos. I don't know.
Central Dolphin. Very very prominent wrestling school for those who are familiar with the high school wrestling in Pennsylvania. Another one that I think will probably be a major. Van Ness is just looking really, really good. I think he's another one that, will probably be in the finals this year. He was a 15 seconds away from beating Diak Mahalis last year in the semis.
Yeah.
I think he wrestled a better match. He just made one mistake, and you pay for it against the guy like Yanni Diakomahalis.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm expecting probably a major there too. Especially because it's Rapos is unranked. He's 3-3. Van Ness hasn't lost a match yet this year. He hasn't really had a close match, even though he's only wrestled 3 of them. But
Yeah.
this is where Penn State's going to start to separate themselves in terms of the team score.
I mean, you can kind of just see it based on the individual rankings. Number
Right.
1, Levi Haynes at 157 versus number 24, Matt Brignola. Levi is 3-0, and Brignola is 6-1.
Mm-hmm. So Haynes actually was supposed to wrestle in the All-Star match against Ja'Cory Teamer. That match was canceled. I'm not sure what the reason for that was, whether it was injuries or whatever, but nonetheless, that match didn't happen. Haynes, he was probably maybe not the most impressive because he wasn't the most dominant wrestler on the team last year, but to me, he was most impressive because he continuously came out and won close matches by doing what he needed to do late in the match. He had really tight matches against a lot of good guys last year in the duels. And when he needed a takedown or he needed a stall, he needed to push the pace to get a stall call, or he needed to get out, he did it. I think that he is going to have a sophomore campaign that's similar to David Taylor's sophomore campaign. I think he's going to really establish himself as the top dog at this weight class this year. I don't think that he's going to have too much of a challenge in terms of, he's going to have a couple close matches, obviously, this year, but I think Levi Haynes is really going to be at the front run. He's going to be a front runner for the Hodge this year. Obviously, you got Carter and you got Brooks, and they're sitting at the potential to be 4-timers this year. So tough to win that with that kind of accomplishment, but
no kidding.
Haynes is obviously the real deal.
Yeah, no, you're not kidding. Very exciting to watch too.
Oh yeah.
But moving on to 165, number 16 Mitch Messenbrink versus number 32 Jake Logan. Is it possible this one's closer than people think?
I don't think so, and there's a couple reasons for that. Mitch Messenbrink is ranked 16th because he's a freshman. He's 7-0. He has not really had a close match yet. Mitch Messenbrink is, you could argue, the best transfer they had this year. I think by January he is a top 10 ranked wrestler. I think he's a shoo-in for All-American, for being an All-American this year. Not really too much to say about that otherwise. I think that he'll let his wrestling do the talking, but I think a lot of people are going to be that 16 is a little misleading as of right now. He is not the 16th best wrestler in the country. I would imagine he's more like a top 5 guy if you were to, by the end of the year, I would imagine he finishes 5th or better. He's really, really good.
Yeah, definitely. I find it interesting too because he's from Arrowhead in Wisconsin, which the football team's also recruiting there pretty heavily. I think they actually have 2 commits from Arrowhead currently for football. So it's
wow. Oh, okay.
Well,
that's pretty
interesting,
cool.
Interesting connection there. But
yeah, right.
Yeah. 174 Carter Srirachi versus Thomas or Thane Lawrence, who both are PA natives, but I mean, I think we all know where this one and the next 3 are going.
I think we do, yeah. I mean, Lehigh wrestled Pitt their first duel of the year, and they lost. And Lehigh came out, won the first 2 matches, lost 7 of the last 8.
Oof.
The only person that won was Michael Beard, who is formerly a Nittany Lion. And he's going to have Aaron Brooks. So I think that I can't remember who Penn State wrestled a few years ago, but they had, I want to say they had like 7 pins or something like that. I swear it was like, it was ridiculous. I wish I could remember the team score and who they wrestled. I remember I was there, but I just can't remember who it was. I'm trying to look in this lineup at where there is a potential for no bonus points, and only place I'm really seeing it is 25 and 33, and potentially 97, because Michael Beard is a very good wrestler. I could see him keeping it at a decision with Brooks, but Srirachi, I mean, I don't know how that match is going to go. It's going to be probably either a pin or a tech fall. What he did to Mekhi Lewis was downright demoralizing and disrespectful. What he's going to do to Dean Lawrence is probably along those lines. It's just there is a tremendous skill gap there and a lot of experience difference there too. You're a senior and a sophomore. Strachey's been on the biggest stage multiple times and been successful. We're going to go Strachey on that one. Bet the house on that.
Yeah. Not kidding. If you haven't seen those highlights of Strachey and Mekhi Lewis, it's all over Twitter, Penn State Wrestling, Twitter, Flow Wrestling, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah.
It's all over our message board too. Everyone's still talking about it. But 184, Bernie Truax, Kaden Rogers. Again.
Yeah, another one. Truex is obviously another guy who transferred. He's 3-0. He did lose the match. He did lose his All-Star match by last second takedown. It's another one that's probably a shoe-in. 97 is a little more interesting.
Yeah, you did say you did kind of preview it a little bit because it's going to be Brooks versus Beard. But I guess just talk a little more in depth about that matchup, that duel.
Beard was at Penn State. He left and went to Lehigh. Brooks was on the team when he was here. They're probably still friends. Beard is no joke. Beard was the only one who was able to win their match against Pitt in terms of past 133 for Lehigh. So another good match, but another one I think that Brooks is really Brooks is another guy who is like Haynes, like Strachey, just, it's almost like you should get rid of like the 2 and 3 rankings and just start at 4 after 1. Like they're just that good. They're just that much better than everybody else. So I expect that to be, it could be a decision, but we'll see.
That's what I was going to say. Do you think he keeps it closer than the average just because he knows kind of what he's going up against because he's wrestled against them in practice and stuff?
I'm not super sure. I mean,
I know, mind you, years ago, but
yeah, I mean, it's tough to say because when you practice with a guy and you drill with them for years and their tendencies, where they're good and where they're not. Kale obviously is a great coach who, he knows how to win matches that, I've always used the example of like how Penn State guys, they don't win a lot of Big Ten titles, at least they didn't. And then they would go to the Nationals and win national titles. Like Vincenzo Joseph never won a Big Ten title, but he was in the finals all 3 years he wrestled. Other than the COVID year which was supposed to be his senior year. So Kale probably doesn't need to do like that overwhelming prep that you would need for like a 1 versus 2, but he knows where Beard is good too. He knows where Brooks is going to be able to stay out of trouble. Yeah. Beard's not a slouch, so it's not like, oh, Brooks, just go ahead, go do your thing. It's going to be, there's always going to be some preparation for it, but Brooks is a better wrestler, he's better technically, and I don't see that being necessarily like a barn burner by any means, but
no, a good warm up though to start the season. But
sure.
Last but not least, Kirk is going to take on number 12 Nathan Taylor. There's not much I feel like you could say about Kirk versus anyone.
Yeah, Kirk's, it's still up in the air whether Gable Stevenson's going to come back for the year and be at Minnesota.
It's just miserable. It's just a new version every week.
Right. Who knows if he comes back? If he does, obviously Kirk's not the favorite anymore, but as of right now, I don't really think it's a question, who is the front runner for the national title at 285. But Kirk looked really good at the All-Star match. Like I said, he looks very quick, and I think he's got a chip on his shoulder from last year. It'll be a good benchmark to see where he's at in terms of the dual meet season and stuff like that. So, but I realistically see Penn State taking at a minimum 8 out of 10 matches in this duel. The only ones obviously are 25 and 33 that could be going in Lehigh's favor.
Yeah.
but we'll see.
Now, because of probably the biggest match at 33, and do you think they start you start at 41, or you think
No,
you
they
just
don't
go
really
from
do.
you just start
No,
from the beginning?
they'll start from 25. Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm not gonna lie to you. I never really enjoyed when they did that at nationals and they like
Yeah.
kind of
Mix it up a little
emphasized
bit.
one match was more important than the others. Like,
Yeah.
you had Dake and Taylor. Okay, that's whatever. And I can understand that because that was like
Hmm.
it was like
The match.
unheard of that they were gonna wrestle. But I just
Hmm.
think they'll start at 25 on Sunday.
Okay. Fair enough. Anything
Mhm.
else that you should kind of watch out for as a fan? Just because it seems like it's maybe two decent matches or close matches, and the rest kind of just seems like, oh, yep, that's it. They ran away with this one.
I think that I hate to keep harping on 33, but I really do think that that's going to be a big tell to see, to show everybody. Crookham had a big coming out party with the win over Rougeau. Um, there's no secret that that win was super monumental and got his name kind of like on the map in terms of
Hmm.
freshman to watch for the year. Um, at the same time, Nagao, he's coming off of, a really impressive showing at Minnesota last year and good showing at the national tournament. And I think people know what he was capable of last year. I think that people are going to want to see how he's improved as a wrestler in state college and in that room so far. Um, and Crookham's, there are guys that are very technical and almost finessey, and they beat you that way, and they're very dominant that way. Then there are guys that just grind you out and really can just like they'll keep it close, but you're going to get beat up the entire match, and you're going to know you were basically in a fight for 7 minutes. Crookham's kind of that guy. Crookham, he's going to attack you and wear you down and tire you out, and it's going to be a big test for Nagao. Like I said, there's all those injuries, and Nagao having a potential injury. There was all those rumors of that, a few weeks ago, a month ago.
Hmm.
Crookham's Crookham's going to be a great benchmark to see how healthy Nagao is and what his expectations should be realistically for
Hmm.
this year.
Yeah. So exciting one on Sunday. Season opener. 2 p.m. start, I believe, and it will be
Mm-hmm.
televised on BTN. If you can't make it, if you are going, get the parking permit. If you don't have it, I think it's like $10 to get in, something like that.
Or you
Not
can
even.
park on College Avenue and throw a bunch of
Well,
quarters in the
yeah, you
parking
could do
lot.
that too if you want. Yeah, I think you can park up to like 2 hours before the game technically. So a lot of tailgating time if you're into that whole cold weather type thing.
Right.
Yeah. Uh, that's each their own on that one. I think $30 season parking passes. It says only available until tomorrow though, so make sure you get that, or $10 the day of the event. Yeah, I think that's pretty much it. Anything going on the recruiting side? I don't think so. It's kind of dead right now, right?
Yeah, not too much. Um, I know that Luke Lillidow had a pretty good showing over at the Bill Farrell. He got beat by Spencer Lee,
Mm-hmm.
which
I mean,
Spencer Lee and Nico Megaludis was a great match in the finals. Um, the Mirasola brothers, I think they signed maybe 2 weeks ago. I
mm-hmm.
saw that. Other than that, season's here, and I'm happy to be watching some live wrestling again. So
Yeah,
I'm
it's
excited for
finally
Sunday.
here. And we're going to
Mm-hmm.
try to do this more often too. So if you aren't subscribed to our YouTube channel and you're listening on your YouTube, hit the subscribe button down below. It's free, it's easy, it's simple. Helps us out, helps you out because you'll get notifications every time we post a new pod or new video or new press conference because we're going to have all that stuff too. Other than that, Joe, anything else really? Any
That's
final
it.
thoughts, I
That's it
guess?
for me.
All
Not
right, cool.
really. I'm excited for this year. So
All right. Like I said,
that's it.
stay tuned to the Penn State 365 podcast. You can also check us out at Penn State Rivals on social media and pennstate.rivals.com for all your post-match stuff, pre-match stuff, videos, etc. The wrestling room forum is jam-packed right now. I'm looking at, geez, some of these threads have like 30, 40,000 views on them, and it's just it's nonstop wrestling talk. Everyone's excited, and should be another good year. So stay tuned for I guess for me and Joey, that's another edition of the Penn State 365 podcast. Signing off.
Mm-hmm.